Hello, everyone. This is Mickey Eisenberg from the Resuscitation Academy, and I'm very pleased to welcome to this podcast Jenny Shin, who is the Research Program Grant Manager. And I'm very happy because Jenny just completed a research study that is, in my mind, cutting edge and could be the future or could be part of the future for resuscitation of cardiac arrest. Jenny works in the EMS division where I work, and we've known each other for quite a while. So welcome to this, Jenny. Can you first describe the title of the article and what is brain oximetry?
Okay, thanks, Mickey. I'm happy to be here. So the title of the study is pretty long. It's the Cerebral Oximetry during out-of-hospital resuscitation, a pilot study of first responder implementation. So when we talk about brain oximetry, also known as cerebral oximetry, we're basically looking at the balance between cerebral oxygen delivery and utilization, basically looking at how well your brain is perfusing oxygen. A mismatch or an imbalance between the oxygen supply and the oxygen demand usually results in a cerebral hypoxia, which is associated with a worsened outcome after an acute brain injury. So in this case, we were hoping to look at the oxygenation level throughout resuscitation of an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest.
What did specifically it try to show? These were applied to patients in cardiac arrest, and what did it try to do in terms of helping the people at the scene of the resuscitation?
So we all know that anostic brain injury is one of the most common forms of death after out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. And we also know that there's not a whole lot of research or literature out there looking at oxygenation throughout resuscitation. So this study was really to see the relationship of oxygenation throughout the resuscitation, and we didn't really have an end goal. We just want to see if different implementations like CPR or defibrillation or pushing drugs or anything in between for pre-hospital would have an effect on the relationship with RSO2. What we ended up deciding on was looking at the relationship of RSO2 compared to ROSC and also the RSO2 in functional survivability. The other part about this is the study itself was pretty straightforward. We had a device that was created specifically to measure brain ox. It was a very simple set and forget it. It's about this big. And so we had our firefighter first responders bring this on scene. So when they first arrived on scene, they would turn the machine on, put one of the sensor patches onto the forehead and set it and forget it. And so they would put it to the side, let resuscitation happen. And after it was done, they would turn it off and those study coordinators went out to collect the data. What we did find was there actually was not a whole lot of direct relationship or direct interaction between CPR or intubation or any of the pre-hospital interventions. It wasn't finite enough. They took readings every 4 seconds. So when it's over 4 seconds, we were expecting these big spikes or some sort of change in the RSO2, and we actually did not find a very strong signal associated with each of those.
What do you think the reader should take home from reading this article?
So the first thing I want to note is this was a pretty small sample. There was only 59 samples throughout the study. It's a lot of work for a little bit of number. So what we want this take home to be is it can be a good potential predictor of ROSC. We noticed that when we looked at the 59 patients across the board, the initial RSO2 reading was not different between those that got ROSC and those that did not get ROSC. But as time moved forward, so 5 minutes after resuscitation started and the first responder put their patches on, there was a difference between the RSO2 values in ROSC compared to those that did not get ROSC. So those that got ROSC had a higher RSO2 value compared to those that did not. And furthermore, for those that got ROSC, there was a difference between those that got ROSC and survived compared to those that got ROSC and did not survive. What's interesting about that, though, is the RSO2 values pre-ROSC, so 3 minutes before ROSC, were not different in that ROSC group, but after 5 minutes after ROSC, there was a difference in those that got ROSC and survived compared to those that got ROSC and did not survive. As one can assume, the RSO2 value was higher than in those that got ROSC and survived compared to those that did not.
So if I am understanding the main finding, it seems to be that there was a predictive value in the technology, but it seems that it wasn't a real-time piece of information that could guide the resuscitation. Am I reading that correctly?
You hit the nail on the head, and that was kind of the takeaway message we wanted to emphasize. When we did the study, we actually blinded it. So the first responders could not see the numbers of the RSO2 for the very reason that we didn't want the numbers to drive resuscitation in real time. I think ultimately we don't know enough exactly what these numbers mean, and the baseline for RSO2 might be different from case to case or patient to patient. So we would prefer for this to be kind of a potential predictive, not real time, but a long-term goal to see if someone might have a good prognosis, good chance of getting ROSC, and a good chance of surviving with a CPC of 1 or 2.
Describe for me what actually happened. They get to the scene, they open the device, and it's a sort of a pad of some sort that it adheres to the forehead, or how exactly does it go on the patient?
Yeah, so it is a device that has, so there's the bright box device, and then there's a long cable that attaches to the sensor. I believe the cable was, I think it went up to at least 10 feet, so you can really move the machine out of the way. And then the sensor was probably about this big, and you would just place it on your forehead. And that is where it would take a reading every 4 seconds of the oxygenation level in the brain. So really you turn the machine on, you put the patch on, and then you move the machine out of the way, forget about it until resuscitation is over, turn it off, and then throw away the sensor. They were disposable. Hopefully you wouldn't be using the same sensor on a different patient. And then the study coordinators would come out and grab the data from the machine.
Wow. I am very impressed with this technology that it can acquire this information so easily. This is, I think, the first article of its type. There have been some articles about oximetry in the field, if I recall correctly, but this was the first one that really had some substantive findings and could show a relationship to the ultimate outcome, which is survival. What are your thoughts about the future of this technology? Do you think it could become as critical as the ECG monitor in a cardiac arrest and resuscitation?
I think there is potential for this technology to be integrated in the current devices that we use, whether it's a LifePak or whatever monitor that your agency is using. I think a lot more information and research is needed for this, just to really truly identify and understand what RSO2 values mean and how they reflect clinically. So I think that down the road, it can definitely use as a predictor and a guide, but right now a lot more information needs to be utilized. I have heard rumblings that some companies are planning on integrating brain ox measurement tools into their devices. So I'm curious to see how people are going to integrate and use that. Certainly, if that is the case, I believe a lot of training should be associated with that, just because we don't want people, again, making real-time decisions based on RSO2 numbers, because I don't think we know quite enough, but I certainly see it coming down in the future.
Wow, cutting edge, to say the least. Well, congratulations on leading this effort and being an author on this paper. And I think it's great to see this kind of ongoing research to try to understand resuscitation better and to perhaps find a new technology for the future. Jenny, any last words you'd like to say to us about the study?
I want to honestly thank our amazing providers that put up with us as we did this study. Our agencies are always willing and grateful to continue doing research in King County, and we could not have done this without them. In fact, I would say that's one of the unique things about the study. There are several other studies out there, but I believe we are one of the only, I think we're the only ones that actually implement it with our firefighter first responders. So we were able to get data on the resuscitation before other studies have, time-wise. So I just want to say thank you to them, and also it was a great experience.
Well, thank you, Jenny. So stay tuned, everyone. This may become a new technology that is part of routine resuscitation. And you heard it first here on the Resuscitation Academy. So Jenny, thank you very, very much for leading this very cutting edge research. And I appreciate you talking to all of us here on this podcast. So be well, and thanks again.
Thanks, Nikki.